Hello, everybody. I'm Marcel James, back again from Antelope Audio. We're doing the presentation in English today, but if you have questions after for myself or for Chris, he's even better at German than I am because he's from here, but we can answer you also in German. Chris Liebing is an artist, has been an Antelope artist for a long time. He's a techno DJ, he's a producer, he has a radio show and his own label, CLR. So check out his music as well. He's a very successful and respected EDM producer and music personality. He's been an Antelope user since the first Orion 32, and now he's going to talk about the latest Orion 32 a little bit, how he uses it in his work and what it means, I think, to your sound, right? So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Liebing.
Hello. Hi everyone, welcome to the Musikmesse. I hope you can hear me okay. I am here not because Antelope Audio is paying me to be here or anything like this. I've always used my equipment in actually in a way that I used the equipment that I wanted to use and not the equipment that was put in front of me. I've used a lot of different sound interfaces in my past 20, 30 years of trying to make music and playing music. And about 3 years ago, I came across the first Antelope Audio Orion 32 Plus. And it literally changed my sound, I would say. You might be expecting me to show you how I'm using the Antelope Audio in a studio, but I have to tell you that I actually haven't used it in my studio. And there's a simple reason for that, because in my studio, the setup is still in there like for more than 5 years. And I've been using different sound cards there, and I still haven't changed it. The main reason what I'm using the Antelope Audio for is actually not what it was intended for. It's for touring. And I have used many, many different sound interfaces for my touring life. I've been through Native Instrument sound cards, Motu sound cards, I saw there like here next door, a lot of RME sound cards. So I've been through a lot, and I've ended up with the Orion 32 now. First of all, because I started using a new mixer. And I tried to use a complete new setup. The new mixer I was using is the Model 1 from Play Differently. It's kind of a project of Allen and Heath, which are back there. And I've been looking for something that makes it easier on the road. And I know that Antelope Audio was never really intended to make a touring sound card. And once I got my hands on it, the first thing I did was I cut the ears off with a little saw that cuts what? Metal? Yeah, a metal saw, thank you. In order to fit it into my hand luggage, so I could travel with it. One thing ahead, I can tell you that I've never traveled with a sound interface that was so easy to use, has been so stable. I come back to the sound later, to actual sound. I'm just talking about the durability of the sound card now. In the last 2.5 years that I've used the Orion Audio, I've probably played about more than 320 gigs or something like this. It has never happened before with any sound card that I've used before, that in these 2.5 years I didn't even have a glitch in any audio signal that I was playing through the sound card. That is the first thing. The second thing is, I started, you know, when you do your setups and you do your sound checks, you start to talk to the sound people of the clubs or the venues. It is literally like almost every time that a sound guy comes to me and says like, what the hell is this signal? Because the signal has a depth that is that I've rarely had before. If you play with people who use CDJs, CDJs with obviously built-in sound cards, or use different system playing with Tractor. I, for example, use the Tractor software from Native Instruments and the Machinist software and Ableton Live, which is open here right now. And you notice always the difference, which is a nice thing for you as a DJ, because in early days you were like sneaking into the sound guy and telling like, hey, when I start, please put it up for like 3 dB or something like that. With the audio, Antelope Audio, I've never had to do this anymore. It's a pretty insane clear signal. The connectivity is amazing because my new mixer has a D sub 25 cable connectivities, which is a balance signal, so you have the perfect connection between the mixer and the sound card. The sound card is extremely simple to use. People who've maybe used to work with RME sound cards know their matrix free, know their menus. It's all been a bit complicated. What I loved about the Antelope Audio is not that I never had really any connection issues or panic moments just before your gig starts and there is no sound card detected in your software, or the sound card just acts weirdly, and it's just extremely stable with the connection, with the sound. And what I basically want to, what it comes down to is within 2.5 years or almost 3 years of using it, literally nothing happened besides one little screw once got loose. And I shook the sound card, the screw fell around. I was a little worried about that. So I actually opened it myself, which you're not intended to do. I found the little screw. Yet till today I didn't know, and I've asked the Antelope Audio people when I sent them my sound card to find out like where this screw is from, but I'm sure they know, but I never really found out. It never affected anything. It never affected the way I've used the sound card. It never affected the sound of it at all. It never affected the stability of the sound card. One of the most important things of my job is that you provide music to the people through their speakers. And usually when you work with a lot of technical equipment, there's always so much that can happen, that the music just cuts off, that the sound card fails, that the connection fails. I'm using this Thunderbolt connection of the Orion, and I think that also plays a part in the stability of it, but I'm sure the technical people of Antelope Audio can tell you way more about that. When it comes to the effects, I've actually never used the effects, but I can tell you another thing. I played a gig in Sofia about half a year ago, and I was able to visit the main headquarters of Antelope Audio. And that was quite an experience, because I've never really seen a company that does everything in-house. And they have a building in Sofia, and they basically do everything there, from constructing, planning, marketing, producing, the manufacturing, having ideas of what to do. I've never really seen it. It was absolutely incredible, and I think that plays a really big role in how much quality their product has. And again, I'm not saying that because I'm getting paid for it. Yeah, it literally changed the sound that I was playing, because it's been so crystal clear, so powerful, so in depth, and just open with air. So when it comes to that, I would be saying like I'm up for some questions, because I just don't want to tell you even more about like how incredibly it sounds. You know it by now.
We're going to take some questions if you guys have them. So while you're kind of thinking about that, I just wanted to add one thing to Chris. I don't know that he realized, but it's true that we made this 32-channel device, first of all, because no one had done it before. I've been with the company now almost 14 years and saw this whole growth from, we started with master clocks, and they would master live shows. They still are used for television shows, the award shows, everything from the Grammys to the Country Music Awards to the Super Bowl is clocked with Antelope devices. So his interface, what we believe, the reason you're getting that depth, to talk a little bit about the technical side, is our clocking is inside of all those Antelope interfaces. So when you buy that interface, yes, you can still buy a master clock if you're using a lot of digital devices. But the sound he's talking about, and the sound that they were using on all of these award shows and major motion pictures like Avatar and Star Wars, that clocking is inside of your interface already when you buy Antelope. So it's like that bonus, kind of like that screw, you know, that bonus screw that you got. You get a bonus clock as well. The Orion 32s are used by Justin Timberlake, by Rihanna, by Faith Hill, by some of the biggest bands in the world on tour, because they like having, rack space is a commodity, a precious commodity on those big tours. And so having 32 channels in one rack, and they have to run 2 rigs.
Right.
So they have to have a redundant rig, so they're switching from one to the other in case something goes wrong, or in case there's an edit on the fly. Maybe the singer says, okay, add a verse to track 4. And then there's a guy behind stage live adding a verse to track 4, and then they switch that rig right before track 4 happens. So I've seen this kind of stuff happen. Katy Perry's another example of this, Orion 32, and I've been on television shows in the U.S. with these things. The Colbert Show, Late Night with Colbert. I sat at his desk, all because of Antelope. So I kind of share this kind of gratefulness, right, for the sound
absolutely.
that you described.
Because it changes the way you play, not only because of the sound, also because you feel extremely comfortable. You feel safe. You usually, I've been working on a digital setup since the early days, 2001, 2003, when Final Scratch started to come out and all these things. And the biggest fear we always have is that the sound turns off, that there's no music out of the speakers anymore. So in the early days, you were working with exit strategies, like you had a CDJ next to you, or you had I was touring with 2 laptops and 2 sound cards in the old RME days, just in order to be safe, that if one fails, I can continue to play. I can honestly tell you, when there's wood here somewhere, that in the first year, I've still had like exit strategies. I had a little extra setup, or I had a little CDJ standing there, and I became so comfortable with it. So you can relax, play your music without having this only a little bit of fear in your head that something could go wrong. And it basically led me to a point where I don't even have an exit strategy anymore.
A lot of people don't. I did a whole presentation here yesterday, a workshop, and we did break down the effects. So in case you're not getting into the effects today and you want to see some of those, it's still, the live stream is on at Sound and Recordings Facebook. So you can go up there and watch that stream and see some of these effects we're talking about. But the interesting thing about what you're to talk tech a little bit, which is why I'm supposed to be here kind of helping out with that side a little bit. What we do is we create the circuit for the Thunderbolt or the USB on the FPGA. The FPGA is always running, it cannot crash. So the stability is there because that circuit is built on the FPGA. So we talk about the FPGA for uses for effects all the time and that routing software. Even if your computer dies, if something crashes, the interface is going to keep going. So it'll outlast the computer, because as long as it's getting power, the FPGA is running. There's no booting, there's no software. So that's why you're getting that stability.
Wow, I've just learned something.
Any questions, you guys? I'll give you a little bit of time here. We sort of fill in so you can start thinking. And this doesn't have to be about Antelope. This could be about Chris's music, about touring.
Let me add one more thing. That's one thing that I forgot. Setting up a sound card used to be always like, okay, get the manual out, get into the matrix view, get your channels right, do this. And what I loved about the Antelope Audio was just basically it's plug and play. You put it in, you choose your sound card, and it just works. I mean, I could show you now on the Ableton Live how you choose your sound card. I'm not sure if you really want to see that, and you have a sound running through. So that's one thing. You just don't run into problems. How many times do you, like, I don't know, for whatever reason your setups are deleted, you're standing in the club and you're like, oh my god, my inputs and outputs are completely wrongly routed, I have to do everything new. This never happened to me ever before with the Antelope Audio. And it makes it, and that's the thing, it eases you out, it makes you so much more comfortable in playing. And not only knowing you probably have the best possible sound of all that's going on the night, you also have the most stable thing going on, and you do not need to worry that something is suddenly not there anymore or not happening. It's so plug and play.
It's really interesting because Antelope's interfaces can do so much that sometimes people get a little intimidated by it and they think, oh, it's too much, it's too complicated for me. And the opposite is true.
Yeah.
Especially with the Orion 32, it's the most easy to use interface you're going to find. So yes, you can go deeper, but it can be as easy as you want it to be. Plug it in your audio, and just start working. And I think that does get missed sometimes.
That is exactly. I'm not the most technical person when it comes to digital interfaces and all the stuff that is behind it. So for me, this was just like a whole relief of when I'm on tour, I don't really need to worry about all these things. And especially, like, you have to say this is actually intended to be used in a studio. But so you basically plug it in one time and you leave it there. I've been plugging in and out these sound interfaces. I actually have two that I'm kind of like just revolving and using. So you plug in every night, you plug out every night. The Thunderbolt connection, you plug it in, plug it in, plug it out, plug it out. Like it's literally plugged in and out a lot of times. It is used under the weirdest conditions with fog, under the sun, open airs, dust, everything. It has never affected this machine in any way. I'm still absolutely amazed how you've managed to build all these connectors so extremely durable that that nothing has happened. I don't want to say or mention any other manufacturers, but you usually know, like when a USB port like starts to get loose, or your jack plugs are like not really that tight anymore. This is just another world, seriously.
One of the things that I marveled at when the device first came out, the original in 32, and even now, is that there's no fan inside.
Yeah.
We don't only make one interface with a fan, that's a Goliath HD. All of our other devices, because there's just so much going on in that one. That's the one I use in my mastering room, by the way. So I'm actually like using this stuff every day too with the atomic clock. But this device has no fan, and it's never been done before. And anything with like 16 or 32 channels at this level, at this quality level, they all have fans. And that's another moving mechanical part that can collect dust, because if you're blowing air through, you're also blowing all the dust through.
Right.
So you're not getting that
exactly
problem, yeah.
And I've never had an overheating sound interface, no matter what the conditions were, no matter how long the sets were.
There's some green technology, I was told, by Igor Levin, is the designer for the products. And when I was like, how did you do it? 32 channels in a one-space rack. And anyone else, they would have massive, massive heat issues. Even the 16s get super, super hot from other competitors, super hot. And somehow they were able to build this, but they used some special voltage green technologies actually to keep the voltage levels down. If you can keep those levels under control, then you only need to power one board with a certain amount of volts.
Yeah.
And then they'll split off some other power to the other board for the analog or digital board, and then maybe that gets a little less or a little more voltage. So they're only using what they need for each board. It's kind of an interesting thing.
There's some incredible engineering going on, and as you learn this right now, I'm learning this now too. It's actually quite about time that I'm learning this.
I've just been around too long. You get old enough and you learn all this crazy stuff that you don't need to know. But what you guys do need to know is it really does sound good. It really works great live, and just echo those sentiments. I've actually been out there on these stages and stood on Rihanna's stage and Jay-Z's stage during sound checks, and stood at, Katy Perry was turning around at the Hollywood Bowl and sitting here looking at her as the stage is turning around. So it was really, lived some really crazy stuff, spending 12 years with Antelope in LA before I moved over here to Germany. So I'm just like...
And the last thing these artists want is any audio glitches.
Correct.
Any little things going on. Another thing that I wanted to mention is the latency. The latency is so incredibly low. I've never really had that before, and so your reaction time, that is also, it's all little details when you play, like feeling comfortable that the sound card will not fail on you, feeling comfortable because the sound is as good as it can be, and whatever you're touching, whatever you're doing, whatever knob you're doing, there is no delay. There is literally not really a delay that you feel anymore. So it is way more natural way of using it.
Well, I'm going to come to your studio next and change your studio out.
All right, please
finally,
do.
right? So we can get that Antelope punch.
It's just seriously the reason I've been too lazy to change it.
I'll come do it for you. Don't worry.
All right.
You'll wake up one morning and you have a new interface in your studio.
Thank you.
Any questions, guys?
Come on.
Music questions? No, I know. Don't be nervous. There we go. Here we go. Thank you, sir.
Hey, so Chris, I was wondering, you said you use native instruments.
Yeah.
Do you start your session with native and then move over to Ableton, or how does that work?
No, actually, I'm not using Ableton at the moment anymore in my sessions because I mostly used Ableton for having external send and return effects, and I used to run my machine, or I used to run other software plugins as a VST basically through Ableton. But since I've been using only Machine as a standalone, I'm basically linking up my Machine with the Tractor, with the Ableton link function without using actually Ableton. So I'm only using Machine because Machine also has the possibility to insert effects. I'm using the routing of my external effects, which are send and returns on my desk through the Machine. So I basically Machine is in the background. I just have the machine actually standing there. I don't even need to look at it in my computer. I only have Tractor open, and I have my track selection. I control this with two Allen and Heath K2 controllers, and basically the machine. And I have my Model 1 mixer. 3 cables going into the Antelope Audio. 3 big sub D25 cables. And that is essentially it. So not only it helped me to get rid of multiple cables that we were traveling with, big 2 cases full of cables, full of stuff. The more cables you have, the more issues you also have with cables. The more can break. So basically, thanks to the Orion, I was able to basically cook the whole setup down to its complete necessary elements that only I need.
I'm just going to get rid of the screensaver here for 1 second. No, it's okay, and show you guys. So when you go and do your routing, if we could just get this to come up here. So what he's talking about is where it says on the very top line, it says line in 32 channels. Those are all your inputs. And you can drag those to anywhere. And one of the reasons this is so cool for live sound is, say you just wanted to use it as a standalone converter. You could just come into this digitally and route it to anywhere. Or say you wanted to also send the redundant feeds out to some mix guy who's doing a mix for a band, for example. You could be recording this, you could be playing it live, and you could be sending it out MADI to yet a redundant rig. This is the only interface with this kind of flexibility. So it can operate as a standalone converter, and it can send those input signals or those playback signals to multiple places. So, yes, it's a little intimidating at first when you first look at this, but as soon as you need to do something, you don't want to have to go through the laptop because of latency.
Right.
You're introducing another process for the laptop to manage. You want the laptop playing machine. You don't want it playing with routing and all of that kind of stuff and having to do it through applications. That's what and everything that's here, the remote control is happening on the software, but there's no added load for the most part to the processing because all of that routing is done as well in the FPGA inside the device.
And it's pretty intuitive. You don't really have to read a manual to
Once you set it up, you can forget it. You're done. This is not something you need to look at every day.
No.
Once it's working, you never even need to open it. You probably never open it when you're
I've never really opened it, no. As I said, it's plug and play. You just put it in, and you could delete some channels which you're not using, but why?
Yeah, once you know it's there.
Yeah.
And as far as that latency thing goes, if you look on the bottom, you see all those mixers. And then there's a mixer tab up on the top. You can create live mixes as well. So it's a live mixer. It's great for monitoring. So if you need to send a feed out one of those 32 channels, 2 of those 32 channels to a musician, you can create their own headphone mixes with this as well. So you just need a headphone distribution system and you're done. So it really is the cornerstone of not just a great live rig with lots of flexibility and stability, but also a studio as well.
It is. Look at that.
Now, these are your mixes. The first one even has a reverb built into Mixer 1. So you have all of that powered by the FPGA in real time. No latency whatsoever. And if you wanted to, take one of those inputs and add some effects, you could do that as well, and you're not adding latency there either. You can keep stacking and stacking and stacking. Those run on the FPGA as well. So again, this is not something Chris needs to get involved with, but you can, So if it solves those problems that he talked about, going out and doing a live gig, you need stability, you need to connect every time you show up. You can't use products on the Super Bowl if they're not going to fire up. You know, that's not a tech call I want to get. So what happens is guys like Chris find something that works, and that's it. They're done. They're not going to change. Anybody that suggests that you change, you're not going to change. As long as it's working, it's stable. That's it. Sounds great. What else do I need? More questions? Anybody? Production question. I mean, he's also a producer. He's also got his own radio show. Tell us a little bit about what you do, so we can, when is your show on? How can people find it?
I'll do a little advertising. I did release an album last September called Burn Slow. It was on Mute Records. For those who might have Spotify, check it out later. It's actually a kind of a listening album. And then it's just like with any other DJ. You find me on social media. You can see the gigs that I'm playing everywhere. And a really nice festival is coming up this weekend. It's a Time Warp Festival where basically everybody meets. And there is I know about like 3 or 4 acts already that using actually.
I was going to say, what do people say when they see you walk in with this thing and they're like?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, Richie Houghton and I were kind of the first people using this sound card. Nicole Mudamer started to use it now, I think a year ago. Paco Osuna. There's many more getting into the idea of, oh, wait a minute, yeah, this is really comfortable. Of course, I've actually asked Antelope Audio if they can make a version without the ears, which fits better in your Remova carry-on for the touring DJs. But it's all about the comfort as well.
You can use the Discrete 4 would be that device. It's about half the size, and there's no rack ears.
Right.
So there is a solution. But again, why would you want to change when you're happy with what you're getting? So,
right.
But for someone starting right now that needs to take that path, that's probably where I'd point them to.
Yes.
It's a Discrete 4.
Yeah.
But just for what it's worth, the EDM realm is something I'm very passionate about as well, because it's how I got my start with mastering stuff for Armada and Black Hole, and like 10 years ago, and Jaren, if you remember her, and Armin van Buren. I mastered some stuff for Rank 1 and some of these guys early on. Zed uses Antelope in the studio. He's appeared on our site before. And also Skrillex is a big Antelope guy. In his videos, you see 2 Orion 32s in his studio. So they always talk about the transients. It's like the first thing out of their mouth. It's like the way that it punches through. Is that something that you notice with the sound?
This is what I meant with the clarity of the sound and the depth. It's just like it's there. It's like there is a certain punch to it, this comes out of, I think, the depth of the sound that you have. And this is what I get from most sound engineers on festivals or anything like this. What they see is kind of like the how do you best explain that? It is something that you feel. I think you can also see it on your desk when you see the dynamics of it. Yeah, it's essentially an amazing dynamics that it has. You get such a clear signal, which is absolutely not in some way compressed or anything like this. So the transients come through like through air.
The signal path is very efficiently managed inside the device, let's put it that way.
Yes.
And again, having it within the FPGA, if you want to do routing, or if you want, I always tell people, it's like, they say, oh, does it start to, and somebody asked me yesterday after a presentation, because I had 6 different effects, and I made a mastering chain with the Zen Tour, which is the same effects that are in this as well. And you're stacking, and one of the guys asked me, is there any phase issues? Because a lot of times when you introduce a plugin, they all manage the dithering differently. So if they're operating at 32 bits or 64, by the time you come back out 24, you have to dither. But some of the plugins like Isotope do a very good job with the dithering. Other plugins don't. So if you're mixing and matching different plugins, you're going to get different issues. The middle starts to sound tubbier, or just instantiating it, right? But with the Antelope effects, you can keep stacking and stacking and stacking, or with the routing, it's all running in the same FPGA, so it's never leaving the environment. So it's like having one processor to do everything, so it's not as congested. If I wanted to put all those features physically inside of a unit, you're going to start going through different gain staging of different components. And so we avoid all that by letting the audio reside in that real-time processor called the FPGA.
Yeah.
So less is more, I guess.
Yeah, and what I've learned now is that the aim of Antelope is basically offering loads of plugins for the sound card. Is that right?
Yeah, we do offer them. We're starting to give people the option, because some people buy it and they say, I don't want to use those right now. I just want the interface. So we're giving people the option. Okay, you can buy it without the effects or with some basic effects. And this is just starting a new model going forward, just to hit different price points and give people the options. Give them more flexibility. But even if you do add the effects to some of the new devices, I think it's the Orion 32 Gen 3, like adding effects is really cost effective. So it's not really expensive if you want to do that. Compared to the competition, they charge a lot more to do that.
I mean, that is the next step. That is one reason why I'm still not, while I'm still stuck to my old sound card, the UAD, because of all my effects that I bought for it, you know.
Spend a bunch of money. Yeah, you'll save a lot of money adding effects with the Antelope device.
Yep.
So I think we've hit pretty much our time limit, right? But any will ask questions. If you want to ask some questions privately or get a picture with Chris, either quickly now or best to head over to the Antelope booth F26. We're just on that left side of that Atom Hall right there. So if you look at the Atom Hall behind us, we're right on the left side of it, facing from here. Thank you guys very much. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.